Sisters, the stars have aligned. Our alliance is unbreakable. Let our light pierce the darkness. For the Empire!
The stars above planet Velka burned red the night. The royal palace came under attack. Sirens echoed across the capital city while giant defense cannons fired streams of blue plasma into the sky. Thousands of alien ships filled the atmosphere like a swarm of metallic insects, descending through thunderclouds toward the glowing towers of the royal district. For the citizens of the Zyrahn Empire, it was the beginning of the unthinkable civil war. Inside the palace, Queen Lythera stood before a massive holographic map with fury burning in her silver eyes. She wore black ceremonial armor trimmed with glowing violet lines, and a long crimson cape flowed behind her like liquid fire. The northern fleet has fallen, one commander reported nervously. Rebel forces are entering the inner city. Another officer turned pale. Your Majesty, they are demanding the surrender of the royal bloodline. Queen Lythera's expression hardened instantly. Then they shall choke on their demands. For generations, the royal family of the Zyrahn Empire ruled thousands of worlds across the galaxy, but power always created enemies. Now a ruthless warlord named General Varkon had united several rebellious colonies against the throne. And tonight, he intended to erase the royal bloodline forever. Far below the palace, in the crowded industrial sectors of Velka City, a human mechanic named Adrian Cole wiped grease from his hands while listening to the distant explosions outside. He never belonged on Velka. 10 years earlier, humans had been invited into the Empire as workers, engineers, and traders after Earth joined the Galactic Alliance. Most aliens still viewed humans as weak outsiders, useful only for labor. Adrian understood that better than anyone. He kept his head down, repaired transport ships, and avoided trouble whenever possible. Unfortunately, trouble had a habit of finding him. A deafening explosion shook the street outside his repair garage. People screamed. Alien civilians ran past the windows in panic. Adrian stepped outside and froze. Above the city, burning ships were falling from the sky. "What the hell is happening?" he whispered. Suddenly, another explosion blasted nearby buildings apart. A military transport crashed directly into the avenue ahead, sending smoke and sparks everywhere. Through the flames, Adrian heard crying, small voices, children. Without thinking, he sprinted toward the wreckage. Inside the destroyed transport were two terrified alien children trapped beneath fallen metal beams. Their silver skin and glowing eyes immediately revealed something important: royal blood. Adrian's heart nearly stopped. One of the children, a young girl no older than 8, looked at him desperately. "Please help us." The little boy beside her was bleeding badly from his arm. Behind them, fire spread rapidly through the ship. Adrian glanced upward nervously. More explosions shook the city. This was dangerous. Very dangerous. But he couldn't leave them. "Okay," he said quickly. "I'm getting you out." Using a broken steel pipe, Adrian forced the burning metal beam upward with all his strength. Pain shot through his shoulders as the wreck groaned loudly. "Hurry!" The children crawled free just as flames erupted behind them. Adrian grabbed both kids and ran seconds before the transport exploded completely. The shockwave hurled them across the street. For a moment, silence filled Adrian's ears. Then the little girl spoke weakly. "You saved us." Before Adrian could answer, armored soldiers suddenly surrounded the street, their weapons immediately locked onto him. Imperial guards. One stepped forward in shock. "Princess Zyrahn?" The young girl nodded shakily. The guards instantly knelt. Adrian stared in disbelief. "Princess?" The boy beside her was the royal prince. His stomach dropped. He had just rescued the children of the most powerful queen in the galaxy. Within an hour, Adrian found himself escorted into the royal palace under heavy security. Towering halls of black crystal stretched endlessly around him while armed guards watched his every movement. He felt completely out of place. "You will stand before Her Majesty," one guard warned coldly. "Speak carefully." "That's comforting," Adrian muttered. Massive throne room doors opened slowly. Queen Lythera sat upon a glowing silver throne at the center of the chamber. Advisors and military commanders surrounded her like statues. The atmosphere felt suffocating. Adrian swallowed nervously. The two royal children ran forward instantly. "Mother." Queen Lythera stood abruptly, relief flashing across her face for the first time all night. She embraced her children tightly before turning toward Adrian. The room fell silent. The queen descended the steps slowly until she stood directly before him. "You rescued my children," she said quietly. Adrian scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Yeah, seemed like the right thing to do." Several commanders looked offended by his casual tone, but the queen remained focused on him. "You risked your life for strangers. I didn't know they were royalty. That makes your actions even more honorable." Adrian lowered his eyes slightly. "Anyone would have done it." "No," Queen Lythera replied softly. "They would not." For several seconds, the queen simply studied him. Then she shocked the entire throne room. "Kneel," she commanded the guards. Every soldier immediately obeyed. Even the royal advisors looked stunned. Queen Lythera raised her voice across the chamber. "From this moment forward, Adrian Cole is under royal protection." Murmurs spread instantly. "He saved the royal bloodline," she continued. "His life now belongs to the crown." Adrian blinked. "Wait, what?" The queen finally smiled faintly. You are family now. Over the following weeks, Adrian's life changed completely. The human mechanic who once repaired cargo engines now lived inside the royal palace itself. Servants bowed to him. Guards escorted him everywhere, and the queen herself insisted he remain close to the royal family for safety. Adrian hated every second of the attention. This is insane, he complained while walking through the palace gardens beside the royal children. Princess Zyrahn giggled. Mother likes you. That's exactly what scares me. The young prince laughed loudly. Unlike the cold reputation surrounding the queen, her children were surprisingly warm and playful. Adrian quickly became attached to them, and slowly, Queen became attached to him. At first, Lythera simply respected his courage, but over time she grew fascinated by his humanity. Unlike the proud nobles surrounding her, Adrian spoke honestly. He challenged her opinions without fear of politics or manipulation. One evening during dinner, the queen asked, "Why do humans joke during dangerous situations?" Adrian shrugged. "Because if we panic all the time, we lose our minds." That seems irrational. Maybe, but it helps. To her own surprise, Lythera laughed softly. The entire royal table went silent. Apparently, the queen almost never laughed. Adrian noticed the shocked expressions around them. "What? You make Her Majesty smile." A servant whispered in disbelief. The queen quickly composed herself. Yet deep inside, something unfamiliar had begun growing within her. Something dangerous, something personal. Unfortunately, General Vakon noticed it too. The rebel warlord watched palace surveillance carefully from his hidden flagship beyond the planet's atmosphere. A massive scar stretched across his face as he observed Adrian beside the queen. "A human," he growled. One officer nodded nervously. "The queen has placed him under direct royal protection." Vakon's eyes darkened. "Then we shall use him." Days later, the palace celebration honoring the royal children's survival began beneath glowing crystal chandeliers. Nobles from across the empire gathered inside the grand hall wearing elaborate ceremonial armor and jeweled robes. Adrian stood awkwardly near the back wall in formal clothing he absolutely hated. "I look ridiculous." "You look acceptable." Queen Lythera replied beside him. Adrian nearly jumped. The queen looked stunning in silver royal armor decorated with glowing gems. Every noble in the room bowed as she passed, yet her attention remained fixed on him. "You dislike royal events," she observed. "I'd rather repair engines." A faint smile touched her lips again. Suddenly, the palace lights died, darkness swallowed the hall. Screams erupted instantly, then explosions shattered the walls. Rebel soldiers stormed inside firing plasma weapons in every direction. Chaos consumed the palace. "Protect the queen," guards shouted. Adrian grabbed the royal children immediately and pulled them behind a pillar as blaster fire tore across the chamber. General Vakon himself entered through the smoke, his armored footsteps echoed like thunder. "The bloodline ends tonight," he roared. Panic spread among the nobles. Imperial guards fought desperately but were overwhelmed. Adrian looked toward Queen Lythera. She stood surrounded by enemies with a weapon in hand, fighting fiercely. But there were too many. One rebel soldier aimed directly at Princess Zyrahn. Without hesitation, Adrian jumped in front of her. The plasma blast struck his shoulder violently. Pain exploded through his body as he crashed to the floor. The princess screamed. Queen Lythera turned instantly, and for the first time in years, Galaxy's most feared queen lost control. A terrifying wave of energy erupted from her body. The floor cracked, went and shattered. Several rebel soldiers were thrown across the hall like dolls. Even General Vakon stepped back in shock. Lythera's silver eyes glowed with fury as she rushed toward Adrian. She knelt beside him carefully, supporting his injured body. "You protected them again," she whispered shakily. Adrian forced a weak grin despite the pain. "Guess I'm bad at staying out of trouble." The queen touched his face gently, and suddenly, everyone in the throne hall understood the truth. This human was no longer merely protected by the crown, he was precious to the queen herself. Vakon realized it too. "You care for him," the warlord sneered. Lythera slowly stood. The air around her vibrated with rage. "You threatened my family," she said coldly. Then she looked directly at Adrian. "And he is part of that family now." The queen raised her hand. Imperial warships suddenly appeared outside the palace windows. Royal reinforcements had arrived. The rebels were surrounded. Vakon cursed furiously before retreating with the surviving soldiers. Within minutes, the attack was over. Several days later, Adrian recovered inside the royal medical wing while the Empire celebrated victory across the galaxy. Queen Lythera visited him every evening. On the final night before his release, she stood quietly beside the window overlooking the glowing city. "You changed everything," she admitted softly. Adrian frowned slightly. "I'm just a mechanic." "No," she said while turning toward him. "You reminded me what this empire should protect." Silence filled the room. Then the queen stepped closer. "In Zyrahn tradition," she said carefully, "one who saves the royal bloodline becomes forever bound to the throne." Adrian smiled weakly. "Yeah, I heard." Her silver eyes met his, "but never before has my heart followed that bond." Adrian froze. Outside, the stars of the empire shimmered across the night sky. And for the first time in galactic history, a human stood not as a servant or outsider, but as someone truly claimed by the alien queen herself.